Disclaimer, I'm not covering the manual in chapter order. I'm covering it in impact order. So if you are or have watched my opening salvo video, then you already know that this was never about one loud, disrespectful, alleged pedophile, always a useful idiot speaking through your screen. That's Donald Trump. My opening salvo warned you about the agenda, that it was here, and my follow-up reproductive care carve-out video showed you the tactic. Because the same people trying to carve women out of full autonomy are usually not interested in broad equal democracy either. So this series is not me starting over. This is me pulling the camera back. We're going from the symptom to the system, from the distraction to the blueprint, from the front man to the power brokers operating quickly and effectively behind the curtain. But before I break down chapter 14, I need to show you the old law that they keep dragging back from the graveyard. Because if y'all think this abortion fight is new, it is not. They are reaching back to an 1873 law. Have you ever heard of the Comstock Act? Well, most people haven't, and that's the problem. This is a 150-year-old law on the books. It's what Trump and his allies, the Heritage Foundation, want to use as a backdoor national abortion ban. So just stay with me, because once you understand this, you should never hear we're just enforcing existing laws the same way again. In 1873, a man named Anthony Comstock convinced Congress to pass a law that he said was about morals and obscenity. Anthony Comstock was a religious anti-vice crusader and secretary of the New York Society for the Suppression of Vice. Turned United States Postal Inspector who lobbied Congress to pass a law that would become known as, for his namesake, Comstock Act. On paper, the law made it a crime to use the U.S. mail to send obscene materials, birth control, anything used for abortion, and even information about sex or anything that they deemed obscene. So this isn't just don't send porn in the mail. This was don't send condoms, don't mail the pill, don't mail any abortion tools, don't mail pamphlets teaching people how any of this works. If Anthony Comstock had his way, even honestly talking about sex and pregnancy prevention was a crime. And it didn't stop at the federal level. Many states passed their own little Comstock laws to criminalize abortion control and even birth control. So the root is Comstock is about control, not care. It's control of information, it's control of your body, it's control of who even gets to understand how pregnancy really works because of his religious beliefs. Now, let me be precise, because this is where people get sloppy. Comstock historically targeted contraception too, but the current federal fight is mainly about abortion-related mailing. The contraception fight today shows up more through emergency contraception, coverage, and the family planning policy. Its modern federal pieces are now mostly found in 18 U.S.C. 1461 and 1462. Section 1461 is about the mail, and Section 1462 reaches common carriers and interactive computer services. And violations can carry up to 5 years in prison for the first offense, and then 10 years after that. Now, you might be wondering, if this zombie law is from 1873, why are we talking about it in 2026? Great question. Over the years, courts weakened parts of the Comstock Act. Some sections were repealed or narrowed, and then advocates fought for birth control and abortion rights and won major cases. But the key is the abortion-related parts of the Comstock Act were never really fully removed from federal law. They still sit there in the USC code like a zombie law that looks there but technically isn't. For decades, the federal government mostly ignored these old abortion mailing rules or interpreted them narrowly. And then under the Biden administration, the Department of Justice said, we do not read Comstock to banning mail abortion pills in states where abortion is legal. And I'll attach that information in the description so that you can read that interpretation under the DOJ at that. By 2023, according to the Guttmacher Institute, 63% of all abortions in the formal health system were done by pills like mifepristone and misoprostol, not surgery. But after Dobbs, Christian nationalists started looking for old tools they could use to choke off abortion without needing Congress to pass a new national abortion ban. Heritage openly argued that DOJ was wrong with their interpretation and that the federal law already prohibits mailing abortion drugs. In other words, they're trying to relitigate abortion through the postal code and the packaging route. And people often get these pills from clinics, from telehealth, and through the mail. So if you're trying to control abortion in 2026, you just don't go after clinics. You go after the pills, you go after the mail, you go after the pharmacies, you go after the doctors, their supply chain. And that's what the Heritage is trying to do. And let's be very clear. Medication abortion is safe and effective. Studies have shown this time and time again, more than 99% of the time, with a lower risk of major complications than any common drugs and routine procedures. But instead of caring about safety, these anti-abortionist Christian nationalists care more about control. That's why Comstock is their weapon of choice. It's a mail law, it's a package law, distribution law. And if you control the mail, you control the pills. And if you control the pills, you control the most common form of abortion. And if you don't understand Comstock, you are going to miss what Project 2025 is trying to do in Chapter 14. You need to recognize that sometimes rights aren't stripped away. They are carved out. So that's why you have to be vigilant and know why Project 2025 is so deadly and so dangerous. So let me summarize everything that I have said in this particular video. Comstock is an old moral control law. Parts of it still survive. The contraception references were removed federally in 1971. The current anti-abortion movement, Christian nationalists, are seeking to reshape abortion access, not just through direct attacks on facilities, but by leveraging the conservatives on the Supreme Court, postal law, packaging routes, agency rules, drug restrictions, administrative carve-outs, and regulatory choke points. That's why this resurgence of the Comstock Act is very dangerous. And that's why we have to stay dialed in and make sure we spread the word. And you have to read Project 2025.